Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In today's topic, we will going to study the most beautiful part in the plant or in the flowering plant, which is the flower. So we will going to study the flower in more details, and also we will going to know about the flower aestivation. So what the flowers? Flowers are the reproductive part of a plant. Reproductive part. So the reproductive or the reproduction, or in another word, it's also called propagation. So the propagation is a process to generate a new plant. Okay, so in the flowering plant, which are use the sexual propagation, that means they produce a male pollens and its union with the eggs from the female flowers to give a new individual plant. So this type of propagation or reproduction called sexual reproduction or sexual propagation. As you know, the plants also other types of plants have no flowers, so they can reproductive by themselves or by some parts of the plant. You can take the stem, you can take the some notes from the stem, and you can plant it to produce another new plant, right? You can also take some of the root or the modified root, okay, to give a new plant. This type of propagation called asexual plant, asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction. While another type of the reproduction is sexual. So we have sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction. So we are going to talk about the flowers, which is involved in the sexual reproduction. So it's the reproductive part of the plant. So the flowers is responsible of the reproduction of the plant or of the flowering plant. Okay, flowers are not only involved in reproduction, but are also a source of food for other living organisms. As you see, there is some organisms, some animals, some insects, they use the flowers as a source of food, and also the flower are rich source of nectar. So bees and butterflies also they use the nectar as a source of food for them. So the flower also is a source of food for other living organisms. In addition to its important or it's involved in the reproduction of the plant. So we're going to study the parts of the flower. So the parts of the flowers um, refers as whorls. Okay, so the whorls are these parts of the flowers. We will going to study each one in details to know the function of each one of them. Whorls flower is composed of 4 whorls, which are largely responsible for the radial arrangement of a flower. The first whorl is a calyx. The first whorl of the flower is a calyx. It is a calyx. The green part of the flower, this is the calyx. Is the outermost whorl of a flower. Okay, it comprises sepal. So this is the sepals and tiny leaves present at the base of a flower. So the calyx protect the flower. The calyx protect the flower whorls against the mechanical injuries. Okay, so the function of this calyx is to protect the flower after blooming, and also in the bud, the floral bud, stage, like this picture. This is the floral bud. So the flower has not been a flower yet. Okay, it's in a stage of the floral bud. Okay, in this stage you can see the calyx protect the floral bud from the mechanical injuries. And after blooming, this is after blooming of the flower, the calyx also protect the flower. So these parts of the calyx called sepals. This green leaves-like structure. It looks like the leaves in the structure. These parts called sepals. Okay, it are parts of the calyx. Another whorl, or the second whorl of a flower, is the corolla. The corolla. This is the corolla. Okay, so the corolla contains petals. Each one of them called petal. Okay, so this is the petal, which is colorful. Okay, so it contains petals which serve 2 main functions. As you see, the petals always colorful. So it it serves 2 functions for the flower. Number 1 is to attract the pollinators, as you see in the picture below. This is an example for a pollinator. This is a bee, so it's a pollinator for the flower. And the butterfly, birds, also a pollinator. So they attracted by the color of the petals of the flower. They attract to this color, shiny colors of the petal. This is the function number 1 for the petals, to attract the pollinators. Number 2, to protect the reproductive parts of a flower. So the petals protect the reproduction parts. So as you see here in this picture, as in your right hand, these are the petals, and this all in the middle all these parts in the middle of the flower, all these are the reproductive parts of the flower. Okay, so these reproductive parts are protected by the petals. So another function of the petal is to protect the reproductive parts of the flower. Okay, petals are brightly colored to attract animals and insects for pollination. So the pollination is a process what I gotta say, to give or to move the male pollens from the male reproductive part of the flower into the female part, into union with the egg inside the ovary, where it is the ovules inside the ovary. Okay, this is the process of pollination. Okay, so the colorful of the petals is important to attract the pollinators for pollination. Okay, now we're going to the third whorl, which is the stamen. Stamen, this is the stamen, is also known as the third whorl of the flower and is a male reproductive part. The stamen is the male reproductive part of the flower. Here also this is the stamen. Here also the stamen is the reproductive part of the male reproductive part of the flower. Okay, the stamen consists of two parts. The filament is the filament, which is a thread-like structure, and the circular structure, this circular structure called anther. It's located on the top of the filament. Okay, it is the anther. So the stamen consists of two parts. The filament, it's a thread-like structure, and a circulated structure called anther on the top of the filament. Okay, so this is all called a stamen. So anther, as you see here below, there is some pores. These black small pores, these called pollens. These pores called pollens. So the pollen is produced by anther, which contributes to the male reproductive process of the plant. Which contribute to the male reproductive process. So this is the reproductive spores from the male in the flower.
Mama.
So this is the pollen, which is the male reproductive spores. These pollens should fertilize the egg or the ovule in the ovary to give the fruit, which is the embryo of the plant, and to give the seed. Okay, so this is the male reproductive part of the flower, we have a stamen. It's also known as the third whorl of the flower. So we have a stamen consists of anther and filament, and a pollens produced in the anther, which contributes to the male reproductive process of the plant. So I used the word pollination in several times. So the pollination, this is the process of pollination. To know, this is a flower, and this is a pollinator attracted by the color of the petals. Okay, so the pollinator visit the flower to collect the nectar. The nectar as a food for the bee. Okay, so the pollens which is produced in the anther, as this picture, okay, is sticks to pollinator, as you see in the legs of the bee. The pollen sticks to pollinator, and so on. The bee will travel to another flower, okay, to visit another flower. So pollinator moves to another flower, and then the pollens will transfer to the female reproductive parts, which we will study now. So the pollens will transfer to the stigma. So and then the fertilization will occur through this process. So this is the pollination process occur in the flowering plants. So this process can be done by several pollinators, insects, bees, butterfly, birds, bats, and several insects. They travel from a flower to another. They take a pollens from some flower and transfer it to another flower to and then the pollination occurs. So now we are going to study the first whorl of the flower, which is the carpels. Okay, so the carpel is the first whorl of the flower. It presents in the center of the flower, so it's the female reproductive part. The female reproductive part of the flower is the carpel. It can be one carpel or more than one carpels in some flowers. The carpels contain the pistil. So is a female reproductive part, and it comprises the ovary, style, and stigma. These three parts of the pistil or the carpel, which are ovary, style, and stigma. These are the female reproductive parts. So inside the ovary we can find an ovule or ovules, which are present in the ovary. So after fertilization, sometimes the ovary turns into the fruit to keep the seeds. So these ovules developed into seeds after fertilization. At the top of the ovary is the vertical structure called style that support the stigma. This is the diagram for the carpel of the flower. So this all the female reproductive part called carpel, and it consists of ovary and style and stigma. In the stigma, the pollination occurs. So the pollens comes from the or transferred from the pollinators and transferred into the stigma, and then go inside to fertilize the ovules inside the ovary. So here in this picture you can see there is several ovules. So these ovules, after fertilization, developed into seeds inside the fruits. Okay, and the ovary also developed into a fruit after fertilization. Okay, so this is the reproductive part, the female reproductive part of the flower, called carpel or pistil. And as I said to you, if it can be one carpel, or in some flowers there is several carpels or several pistils in one flower. Here in these two pictures there is the whole parts of the flower, and you can see them all. And here is the notice. If you hear the term androecium, it refers to the stamens of the flower, the stamens, which consist of anther and filament. So it's called androecium. It refers to the stamens or the male reproductive part of the flower. And the term gynoecium is the female part of the flower, which refers to the carpel. So you can hear gynoecium or carpel or even pistil. Okay, the third consists of stigma, style, and ovary. And you can see calyx, which consists of sepals, and you can see the corolla, which consists of petals. Now we're going to shift to another part of the topic, which is the flower aestivation. So first of all, what's the aestivation, or what's the flower aestivation? Aestivation in botanical terms is the arrangement of sepals and petals in floral buds. The arrangement of sepals in petals in floral buds with respect to other members of the world. So there is we can say that indicates to there is a difference or differences from a flower to another type of flowers in the arrangement mode of the sepals or petals. Okay, so this is called aestivation. This is another definition of aestivation, is the mode of arrangement of the petals or sepals, especially the petals, in a floral bud with respect to the members of the same whorl, calyx, or corolla. Okay, so we will going to study the types of aestivation of a flower to see the difference or the different types of mode of arrangement of petals of the flowers. Types of aestivation. There is 4 types of aestivation. Number 1 is the valved aestivation. Okay, this is the valved aestivation. Number A, when the members of a whorl, here we're talking about the petals. Okay, so when the member of the petals are in contact with each other by their margin. If you remember the margin, so the petals here in contact to each other or with each other by their margin, or when they lay close to each other, the petals lay close to each other without overlapping. So that means no petal overlap another one. No, they just laying to each other without overlapping. So this type of aestivation called valved aestivation. Here you can see it clear. The petals arrange or lay close to each other without any overlapping. They just close to each other. So you can find this type of aestivation or valved aestivation in the flower of the milkweed plant. Okay, you can see the petals like this picture. They arrange or they lay close to each other without any overlapping. No petal is over the another. No, just they are close to each other. The another type of aestivation is twisted or contorted aestivation, but it's known as twisted aestivation. So this is number B. This occurs when one margin of the sepal or petal overlaps the next one. One margin overlap the next one. One margin, I can draw it. Okay, here you can see one margin of the petals is overlap another one, the next one. So it's overlap, it's over the next one. The margin of this petal is over the next one, and the next one is over the third one. Okay, the next one is over the third one, and the third one is over the fourth. So this type of aestivation called twisted aestivation. So this aestivation can be in clockwise or anti-clockwise direction. You can find this one in cotton and China rose. Here in the pictures you can see how the petals overlapping each other's. This one is overlap the next one, and the next one overlapped by the third one, the third one overlapped by the fourth one, and so on. So in this is the China rose. You can see the margin. If you don't remember what I mean by the margin, this is the margin of the petal. Okay, so you can see it in this situation, the margin of the petal overlap the next petal, and the next petal overlap the third petal. Okay, this is the first one, and this is the second one. Okay, and this is the third one. Okay, so the margin of the first one is overlap the second, and the second is overlapped the third, and the third overlapped the fourth, and the fourth overlapped the five, and the five overlapped the first again. Okay, so this type here also below you can see the overlapping of each other. So this type of aestivation called twisted aestivation. The second type, the third type of aestivation is imbricate aestivation. The imbricate aestivation. In this aestivation, is said to occur when one of the sepals or petals is internal being overlapped. Internal being overlapped on both the margins. Here in this one, number C, one of the petals or the sepals is internal being overlapped. Here, where is this one? Okay, I will mark it. Here we can see this one, this petal is internal being overlapped. It completely internal. Okay, and one of them is external. One of these petals is external. This one is completely external, out. I think this one is not okay. I will do it again. So you can observe the two sepals or petals. One of them is completely internal, overlapped, and one of them is external, is out. So this type of aestivation called imbricate aestivation. Okay, this is a picture. Here you can see this. Here you can see this petal is completely internal overlapped, completely in. This one is completely in, and this one, this petal, completely out, external. This one is completely out, okay, or external, overlapped. So if you observe these two petals, one of them is completely in, and another is completely out. So this type of aestivation is imbricate. But the another petals or sepals are overlapped, like twisted, but just is distinguished by these two petals. One of them is completely in, and the another one is completely out. So this type is imbricate. Here in this flower, this petal is completely in, and this one is completely out. Okay. The fourth one is auxiliary aestivation. Auxiliary aestivation. Okay, so this fourth type of aestivation called auxiliary. This occurs when there are 5 petals. This one. Okay, where there is 5 petals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, of which the posterior one, this one, the posterior one is the largest. The posterior one is the largest, and it almost covers the two laterals. These are the two laterals petals, and the posterior one is almost covers the two laterals petals. And there are also these two they are they called outerior, or the smallest petals. Okay, so the lateral in turn nearly overlap the outerior, or the smallest petals. So this is the axillary aestivation. You can find this one in all butterfly like Papliniaceae corolla. Example for this family is Crotalaria plant. This one, or this picture, is an example for the axillary aestivation. This is the posterior petal, which is the largest one, and it covers the two lateral petals. This is the two lateral petals are covered almost by the posterior one. Okay, and the lateral petals overlapped the smallest two petals. Okay, they said they known as the posterior one is standard, is the posterior petal called standard, and the two lateral petals called wings, and these two smallest petals called keel. Okay, so this shape of the arrangement of the petals you can or it's called the axillary aestivation. I think it's very clear. If you see, you can know this type is axillary aestivation by distinguished by this largest petal and how it cover the two lateral petals. And here in this picture, the two smallest ones they're not clear, but here they are clear. The smallest one are overlapped by the lateral two petals, and this is the posterior petal. Okay, so I think that's all about the topic for today. If anyone have any question, you can ask me. See you later. Bye bye.